Guys, welcome to the I Love CVille Show. It's Jerry Miller. Happy Tuesday, Charlottesville and Central Virginia. An absolute pleasure connecting with you here on the I Love CVille Show. We have a great program lined up for you. We have Jim McVay, an associate broker at Roy Wheeler. He's kind enough to join us here on set. We are going to spotlight 45 years of his perspective here in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. I think he certainly has a lot of perspective that he can offer to all of us across Charlottesville and Central Virginia of how our community has evolved, how it's changed. I think when you start getting recognition as one of the happiest places to live in America, as Charlottesville's been dubbed for so long, you start getting a crop of folks that perhaps aren't born and raised in Charlottesville and Central Virginia, migrating and setting up their homes and their families here. So I'd like to talk about that evolution with Jim McVay. One of the things that I really value about this program is connecting with people that have the same, if not greater, passion for Charlottesville, for Albemarle County, and for Central Virginia like I do. And I think Jim embodies all those fantastic qualities. I find it invigorating when we connect with people that also are passionate about our community, because it's a perspective that I'm able to consider, perspective that I'm able to then kind of assimilate into how I look at our community and how I go about running our business and supporting and working alongside the fantastic businesses and people that we work alongside here in Central Virginia. Before we welcome Jim McVay to the show, I'd like to thank some of the fine folks that make the program possible. First, Sean and Roxanne Simmons at Greenberry's Coffee. This husband and wife tandem, 28 years ago, had a goal of creating a craft coffee company in Charlottesville. Now, folks, when they started this company, this was a time when people took their coffee just a couple of ways: black, perhaps with cream, perhaps with sugar. So when you're opening a craft coffee company 28 years ago, you can imagine the resistance they got from the marketplace. But they had a stick-to-itiveness. They had a willingness to, have sweat equity and work hard. The roasting facility was in the McIntyre Office Park. The retail location was in Barracks Road Shopping Center right next to Staples Barbershop. Today, Greenberry's Coffee Company is a global business with locations in Qatar, Japan, Saudi Arabia, Washington, D.C., soon to open in Portland, Oregon, and it started here in Charlottesville. These are the kind of stories we celebrate at I Love CVille. We also want to give some thanks and some attention to Dr. Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. His team is changing people's lives, improving the quality of life of people. I have seen it firsthand. We work alongside both Dr. Wagner and Greenberry's Coffee from an advertising agency of record standpoint. And in the process of doing this kind of work with these businesses, I've had the pleasure of getting to know the entrepreneurs behind them. And I'm telling you, they embody genuine authenticity and caring about our community, just like we do at I Love CVille. 4 people make the program possible: Judah Wickower, Lauren Linsky, producers on this show. Harris Tolber is our director. They have the hard job. I have the easy job of sitting in front of a microphone and talking with awesome people like Jim McVay. I think Harris Tolber, on that note, let's go to the studio cam. Let's welcome Jim McVay to the program. The first thing I'd like to say is thank you kindly for joining us.
You're welcome.
This is a rescheduled interview. We had Jim originally planned for Wednesday this past week, but Facebook had a global issue where it was down. So this gentleman has offered his most precious commodity, his time, and has come back on Tuesday to connect with you guys across Charlottesville and Central Virginia. And the first question I'm going to throw to you is, we know you as the real estate agent. You're very successful. You're the top producer in I think the largest firm in Roy Wheeler in Central Virginia. Okay, we're going to talk about that shortly. Before we do, I'd like to talk about Jim McVay, the person, the man, his hobbies, his interests, and his passions. Put into perspective what you're all about.
Thank you. I guess the things I'm most passionate about are the opportunities that exist in town when we think of the music industry, the arts and entertainment. this has to do with what you mentioned about people coming into the area over the years. It's just people recognize, wow, the musicians that are in Charlottesville, I'll go there. It's just been amazing, the live music scene and all the culture and the variety. It's not often that the Dalai Lama and the Rolling Stones would get mentioned in the same sentence.
Right.
But I saw him here.
It's amazing.
So people like that and entities like that, it's really amazing.
So music, very important to you. A hobby?
Well, I can't perform it and
Sure.
I can't sing it.
But enjoying it.
Enjoying, yes, particularly live music.
Yeah.
And anything that's done well, the different genres, it's just really exciting to me. I've developed a fondness for a particular kind of music, and this ties in with some of what's peaceful to me is I do a fair amount of meditation.
Okay.
And I'm involved with some different groups that do that.
Uh-huh.
I'm not the most disciplined when it comes to sitting at home and doing it, but what I've found is that there is certain music, Hindu music in particular, where I don't know the words, but the voices are so sincere and honest and beautiful that, it puts me in a good place and that I can center myself and so forth, even though I don't know what they're singing about.
Sure. Well, it sounds like what you appreciate in a lot of ways is the ritualistic aspect of things. And where I'm going with this is I get invigorated and recharge my batteries being around people. I love people. Okay, I'm a people person. Okay, and when I am with either various different groups of friends, and feel fortunate in that have a lot of friends, is I get invigorated sharing experiences with them, whether new to me or new to them. I love to see friends enjoy things for the first time. It invigorates me. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Introducing people to. Whether it's musicians or events or inviting them to speakers. We have so many talented people, both in the community, to share their thoughts on a variety of subjects, as well as obviously people coming into town, that I get a kick out of saying, hey, would you like to come? And what brought me to Charlottesville, by the way, was the Darden School. I got my MBA.
Right.
What they're continuing to do is bring speakers in. So inviting friends and acquaintances, hey, would you like to go over to Darden and spend an hour listening to the worldwide head of Coca-Cola?
Uh-huh.
Well, he's got something interesting to say.
Sure.
Along those lines, two other speakers there. One lady, can I use the expression kicking rear end?
Yeah. You can. There's no rules here.
Okay.
Yeah.
She was doing extremely well in Wall Street. Okay.
Uh-huh.
A Darden graduate. She comes back and talks about, instead of us thinking about what we want to be, we should be thinking about who we want to be. What values do we have? What do we want to be remembered by? Is it my job? Is it that Jerry is an honest, hardworking, caring person?
You're talking about legacy.
Yes. Have speakers like that come in. I'll mention one other speaker. Ray Anderson was the president of private company, probably the biggest maker of industrial carpet in the world.
Okay.
He finds out, once he's a grandfather, he finds out his company is one of the biggest polluters in the world.
Wow.
With all their chemicals. He goes on a crusade when this is pointed out to him about this, and recognize his audience. It's business people, it's Darden affiliated people, it's Darden students. He gets all of our attention by saying, one program that we've instituted has saved us $300 million. And it all has to do with going green with some of what we do. And imagine what else you can do. Hearing speakers like that can energize us in different directions.
You know, I have been struggling with this lately, and I want to get some perspective from you, is, you know, I have a young son. He turns a year old tomorrow. And since I've become a father, I feel like I've almost come at like a crossroads in life, because there's somebody else that is reliant upon my decision making. And it's opened up my perspective to different things outside of just being razor focused for 80 hours a week on growing a business. Okay, it's giving me like a more broadened perspective.
Yes.
And where I'm going with this is now I'm starting to consider things like, what's my legacy? What's my footprint going to be when I leave this earth? Because we don't know when we're going to leave this earth. What will people just remember me by as a social entrepreneur or a conscious capitalist? Or will they remember that I'm focused on leaving Charlottesville in a better place, maybe being a good father or a husband? Where I'm going with this is, have you ever, and this is a deep conversation, and one of the things I love about this show is connecting with folks and learning from them, is, did you come to it a time where you felt conflicted about, you know, I'm focused on growing this business and you're so successful, but also leaving Charlottesville in a better place than when you first arrived? Can you put that at all in perspective, if that's something that's challenged you in your life at all?
I don't think there was ever a conflict in terms of what I was doing. Perhaps, and this is an ongoing thing, perhaps it's a question of how much time am I choosing to devote in one area or another.
Okay.
Gee, why don't I just give this up and go and work in this other area? Another thing about this community, there's so many opportunities to do good in so many different ways. Well, if I'm putting in my 60 hours a week, which sometimes happens in work, I only have so much time and energy to put into, you know, helping kids in a certain situation. So there's that. But there hasn't been the conflict.
That's called opportunity cost.
Yes. Right.
It's the opportunity cost, and that's an economics term, and he knows it because he's an MBA. Opportunity cost is if you spend your time doing this, the opportunity cost is you aren't doing that. And that's what I struggle with. Because as a provider for my family, I have to be focused, but at the same time, it comes at the opportunity cost of not being there.
Right.
Talk to me a little bit about the help, you know.
Right.
How have you managed that? Because you clearly have been successful by working hard.
Well, one of the most valuable lessons from Darden, and maybe I had this before, but it wasn't recognized as much. Putting in the time. You know, people look at graduate degrees and so forth. Oh, what did you learn? What was the subject matter and so forth? And obviously that was important. There's 2 or 3 lessons that I took away from Darden. Perhaps the most important was putting in the time. If it means a 10 or 12-hour day, that's what you do to accomplish what you want. Now, what they were talking about, obviously, is being successful in business.
Business, right.
But at some point, you make a decision, like you're saying.
To pivot.
Right, okay. If I put in 8 or 10 hours here, do I have enough energy left to play with the kids, to go and volunteer doing this? But you got to have, you know, the devotion to that.
Talk to us about, I like to call it the birth story of Jim McVay here. So you come to Darden. You've been in Charlottesville since 1974. Walk us through the evolution of you in Charlottesville, Virginia. MBA, next step into real estate. The show is yours.
Okay. Remind me, though, I want to get back to a thought about imagining. You mentioned about imagining the influence you could have.
Okay. I'm right. I'm putting a note right here.
Good. Okay. What kept me in Charlottesville was not intention about, after 2 years of Darden, oh, what a great place to live. They worked us pretty darn hard. I didn't get to know Charlottesville all that well while I was here, but I met a fella, an entrepreneur who owned a few different businesses, And I met him during an independent study project. And he's starting a construction company and says, I need somebody to run it. And I admitted to him that, well, you know, sir, that I haven't worked construction before.
Right.
But you're graduating from Darden. Doesn't that mean you can run a company? And since I wanted the job, my answer was, yes, sir, I could do that.
I would have done the same.
So that's what kept me in Charlottesville, is running this company for him. We did it for 2 years. There were some unfortunate circumstances, including him passing away 6 months after we got started. I tried to do that. I was not prepared to run a company by myself with, extremely limited financial resources just coming out of school. But I got my real estate license within that 2 years to do some things that we were probably going to be doing. And then I just transitioned.
Talk to me about what you wanted to talk about with imagining.
Oh, yes. J.K. Rowling gave the commencement address at Harvard in 2008. Oh, if anybody's going to Google it, there's a 21-minute version.
That's the
full
one?
thing.
Okay.
It's the
full thing. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, yes, she's funny. She talks about two primary subject matters. One is the benefit of failure. And then she qualifies it and says, okay, I know I'm talking to the graduates of Harvard University. Therefore, your definition of failure and everybody else's might be a little bit different. But still, and she talked about that. But the imagination, she said, is we all, and perhaps you in particularly, whatever you choose to do with your lives, you're going to be influencing people. Imagine the impact you're going to have. You will not know these people out there that are being influenced by your decisions, but you will influence them. Have enough imagination to know what that influence is doing.
And the level of importance and the so I that's what I'm realizing, that with what we're doing here and how we're connecting with folks, we have some influence. Okay, yes. We have 250,000 monthly followers, 250,000 people, and I do not take that lightly. And I try to make sure that we spotlight folks that are doing things the right way, like yourself, folks that are positive, folks that are focused on leaving Charlottesville in a better place, social entrepreneurs. Okay, conscious capitalists, yes. The heads of charities, C-suite folks, local politicians. David Toscano is coming on the show on Thursday. Okay, so folks that have their life mission to leaving the area better. So I understand the importance that comes with that. Where I'm going with this is, when did you start realizing that you, as you were building your real estate career, were someone that people were looking up to? Because when I mentioned and we promoted that you were going to be on the show, so many of your colleagues and contemporaries were excited about this.
I can't pinpoint when people started doing that.
Okay.
Perhaps because not being necessarily aware, it was all, this is the way it is. Okay. I was fortunate enough, even prior to being in Charlottesville, in the communities and schools that I was at, that we were all involved, all contributing, doing positive things. I was brought up with family that were involved in big-time volunteers. So to me, it was just, this is the way you do. You give of yourself. Whatever your talent is, your time is, that's what you contribute. So I never saw it as any different.
When did real estate start becoming a career for you?
Oh,
I know you got into it because you got your license while working for the construction company, but when did you start realizing this is something that I could make a serious living doing?
Well, first of all, it was, how am I going to pay my bills?
Right, of course.
So, and then it was just an evolution. Yeah, I saw the opportunity. I'm not sure I can pinpoint that, but it was like, oh yes, there's certainly the opportunity.
What is it you love about it?
A couple things. the diversity of people that I get to meet and work with, it's amazing. So there's interest. There's also the ability to help people in certain situations. You know, real estate can be a very positive situation for folks, and sometimes it's not so positive. It has to do with, you know, a relative passing and helping out the family with that. So there's all different ways to help people in such a complicated situation, but I can bring knowledge and a caring approach to this. What can we do to make the best of this situation?
Love it.
And also the flexibility of time. I'm not sure I would be very good at all if you said, okay, you're going to show up at 8 a.m. every morning and you can't leave until maybe 7 p.m., okay? I'm not sure I could pull that off. But I could put in that time if it's me making my own schedule. I'll work Saturdays and Sundays or whatever is necessary.
Talk to me a little bit about, you know, when you're not working, things that are of importance to you. You've touched on the music. You've touched on hearing the fantastic speakers that come to our community. You have mentioned to me that you like going to Observatory Hill.
Oh, yes.
Talk to me about that.
Okay. Astronomy's always been fascinating to me. I am a member of the Charlottesville Astronomical Society, which basically it's once a month going and hearing interesting speakers, professors talk about what they do. I've taken a continuing education class taught by a UVA professor. Here's some food for thought.
Okay.
Professor talks about all kinds of different things during this class. He starts out the class talking about first some basics, which a lot of us knew, but the age of the universe, the age of our galaxy versus the age of different galaxies and so forth. And then we spend the rest of the course talking about what our capability is in terms of observing the universe and so forth and how we're progressing. And then he ends the class with, remember the first class I talked about the fact that there are some galaxies 1 billion years, 2 billion years older than ours? What if a civilization started developing 1 billion years ago? What would that be like?
It's crazy, right?
Yes.
That's heavy.
Yes.
So what did that get you thinking?
Oh, about all kinds of things. The pace at which we progress. Yeah, in our civilization, sitting at lunch when my great aunt's 100th birthday and seeing a plane go overhead and realize that's new to her, or from the time she was born, how much we've progressed in 100 or 200 years, or however long we define societies. 10,000 years, 100,000, but 1 billion years?
How about Charlottesville on a micro level?
Yes.
You know, we're talking macro concepts here. Charlottesville on a micro level. What have you seen from Charlottesville? 45 years.
Yes.
Talk to me about that. Open-ended question, then I'll ask specifics.
Okay. We're seeing, obviously there's more people moving in. We're seeing that kind of growth. I'm not crazy about the pressure that's putting on some of our infrastructure, but I also like the fact that there is a contribution towards, like we were saying, the cultural activity that's going on. I like that people with interests are coming here, and they want to engage also. So I like that.
Do you think that it's all for the best?
When I drive around the country, I'd just as soon a lot of it be preserved as country as opposed to another subdivision. Yeah, I've got.
And that's a conflict with what you do professionally.
Yes.
I mean,
it is. Yes.
Because from a real estate standpoint, you would love if, from a business standpoint, if there were subdivisions everywhere in some ways, right?
Well, that's where you draw the line. What term did you use as far as limiting it or a potential conflict? Yes, there is that. In some respects, I try to weigh that with I support 3 different very good environmental entities around. Southern Environmental Law Center is fantastic. Nature Conservancy, Ravenna Conservation Alliance, they all do really good work. So I like supporting them in different ways.
How have you seen, we talk so much about the downtown mall. In a lot of ways, I see the downtown mall being like the crown jewel of Charlottesville. These 7 or 8 blocks have like the dining, they have the music, they have the culture. They have the public speakers, the TED Talks. I think it's a melting pot of many different socioeconomic backgrounds. It's a melting pot of many different thinkers and ways of life. How have you seen in 45 years, just broad perspective, and then we'll talk specifics, downtown change? And if you can give some anecdotal, that would be great.
Well, I'll start with the Paramount Theater.
Yeah.
When you're talking about downtown mall being the crown jewel, well, the Paramount and what it offers in so many ways is just amazing. I expressed this anecdotally just yesterday to some clients. Roy Wheeler's office used to be on High Street, about 26, 28 years ago. For 3 years, my office was here. Well, it was great. It wasn't necessarily conducive to getting a lot of work done when you're going to spend 2 hours at lunch on the mall. But it was a lot of fun. So between that and the pavilion and what it offers, now, obviously, we've lost a nice rink. Maybe there'll be another one coming along.
Now, the pavilion at one time was on the other side of the mall.
For a year or two, yes.
Right.
I remember
like a
that.
small platform, right?
Yes.
Tell me about that as a music lover, and how what you remember when Fridays After 5 was on the other side of the mall, and then how it moved to the other side, and how it maybe changed the mall. Because Fridays After 5 is a draw.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. As well as the other concerts too. But yeah, Fridays After 5, just the fact that we can have so many people coming. And the diversity of kinds of music. I usually focus on, who's playing, and then go down, because I know I'm going to bump into people. Those of us that have known the music scene for a long time, and there's certainly musicians that have been playing for a while, it's fun that sometimes I don't see some of these folks anywhere else except here's a concert, the Casuals are playing. Well, I know I'm going to see people that I only see there, but it's great to see them.
Sure.
Kind of thing.
And it's like you have to prepare for it. I'm the same way. It's like, if I go down here for this event, I'm going to see 10 people I know. And, I love it.
Yes,
What I love about Charlottesville is it has a sense of intimacy, and it still has that small town feel, but it offers like this cosmopolitan opportunity from a dining, culture, music, socialization, outdoors, sports, ACC sports. I think oftentimes we take it for granted. Obviously, one of the many reasons why we've become known as one of the best places to live, I still even feel like we're one of the best places to live, even post 8/12. How have you seen the market change once it started getting called the best place to live in America?
Yeah, that many more people wanted to come here, certainly wanted to at least explore. And it was always fascinating. I felt like I was part of the Chamber of Commerce as far as this is what we have to offer, not just talk about real estate. But it has meant more neighborhoods being developed, more condos, and so forth. And I can appreciate the thought of, if we're going to have more people and more density, it's very important to consider, do we let it spread out? Do we concentrate it? Do we try to preserve green areas in certain areas? It's not an easy question.
Ray Cadell, and we knew this was coming. He's tuning in. He's offering some anecdotal perspective. He says, Jim was on the other side of a transaction I did very early in my Charlottesville real estate career. It was for my own home.
Yes.
He is a first-class guy. How does that make you feel?
Oh, it's great. Coming from Ray, he knows a lot of people. I appreciate that.
It's interesting because it doesn't always have to be. This is what I've started to feel. We got more people mentioning, jumping in here from a comment standpoint. Business doesn't always have to be a combative competition.
No.
It could be a deal can, and I had to learn this.
Oh, okay.
A deal can be done in a way where like anyone, everyone can leave the table feeling pleasant.
Well, that can happen, but even if the circumstances aren't that way, you can at least listen to the other side, try to find a middle ground, do the best we can while still defending my clients, because usually it's, my side against your side kind of thing, doing the best job I possibly can to protect my clients and serve their interest, while at the same time listening and looking for that common ground. Is a compromise appropriate here? That kind of thing.
Caitlin Mancini's chiming in. Caitlin Mancini says, Jim is an Earlysville expert. Please put in perspective some of the properties he has on the market are coming soon in Earlysville. Look at the realtor offering the realtor call to action right there.
Thank you, Agent K. I'm Agent J. She's Agent K. In Earlysville, we've got some 30 acres of land that is going to be coming on the market soon, that somebody might want to build their dream home on, or somebody might come in and create a few lots out of it. We already have listed a really nice home on 4 acres. It's right down the road from where I live, as a matter of fact.
You live in Earlysville?
I do.
Earlysville, with the boom of, say, Forest Lakes and Hollymead, and the whole 29 corridor, which Wendellwood has such stake in. Wendellwood, in a lot of ways, is with United Land Company, I feel like a visionary. A man that truly understood where the market was headed before the market itself knew where it was going. And he did that by, let's be honest, purchasing 29 North.
Yes.
Pretty much, right?
Yes.
Is that fair?
As far as I know.
A lot of the land.
Yes.
Okay. How has Earlysville changed with the onset of the boom of Forest Lakes, Hollymead, and all that development?
Perhaps not in the way you would think.
Okay.
Because the county is not permitting but so much residential growth. It's not like we've seen a big boom in that respect. What it has affected is that so many people can go, oh, I can be at Hollymead Town Center in 10 minutes.
Right. Convenience.
So, yes. It's convenient to there. And so in some sense, it's redefined, well, what does it mean to get to town? Well, restaurant, shopping, perhaps even your employment is up 29 now, Ninja, so forth. So the focus isn't necessarily within Charlottesville.
What do you see as potentially the next growth corridor as an area? I mean, I'm seeing the South Side. I live on the South Side with the boom of Fifth Street Station and Wegmans.
Yes.
That's really gone gangbusters. It seems to me, and you're the expert, I'm the layman, it seems to me that the city of Charlottesville is 10.27 square miles. Okay, it's also landlocked by Albemarle County. It seems to me that Charlottesville and Albemarle County, very limited potentially in where they could go from a growth standpoint here. What are your thoughts?
Well, Charlottesville, because of I forget what it's called, the moratorium on annexation, that we know that their space is defined.
Right.
So it's reusing different spaces and redeveloping things. It's got to become the city of Charlottesville has to become more dense.
I feel like, yeah, I totally agree with that. I feel like not only does it have to become more dense, it might actually obviously has to go vertical.
Right.
Yeah. And I feel like this is interesting, and I love having this conversation. Okay, the baby boomer and the millennial, the Gen Xer and the Gen Yer, they now have like the same common needs, their same common wants. and they want to be within proximity of amenities in downtown, and their time. They're realizing the importance of their time and how it's our most precious commodity. So everyone wants the same thing of being, how can we be around this like 8-block epicenter of culture and dining and music, which is the mall, which is obviously driving prices astronomically through the roof. Open-ended question, your thoughts on this topic just in general?
First of all, my comment about the density and the height and so forth, if I didn't preface that with an if, I should, and that is, if the growth and the density is going to be supported, because I'm not necessarily a fan of Charlottesville growing at the rate it is, the number of people coming in, but if that's going to take place, then yes, there's going to be the height increase and so forth.
Okay.
Charlottesville, to me, is very vibrant. I don't know what adding X number of more certain kinds of stores or subdivisions or whatever is going to add to the vibrancy and the quality of life that those of us that are already here have. I can certainly see the draw, and I work with people. Oh, we're coming down from wherever. I'm coming over from California. Yeah, that's a nice place to be. Well, we're creating neighborhoods and amenities for people from out of the area to come here. Is that trade-off worthwhile as a community? You know, what do we get for providing this opportunity for outsiders?
Well, let's play devil's advocate and let's have this conversation. This is the kind of topics that intrigue me. We get an increased tax base,
Yes.
and an increased tax base that can be allocated to improving infrastructure. What we also get is perhaps more traffic congestion. What we also get is, with an increased tax base, one of the negative ramifications of that is gentrification, where it becomes more expensive for people to live in an area and stay in an area, because with taxes going up, they're going to have to open up their wallets even more just to stay in their home, even if that home is mortgage free.
Right.
Offer some perspective here, because you can offer perspective as a realtor, as an MBA from Darden, and as a passionate Charlottesvillian.
I think it's unfortunate that so many people who are vital to the community have a hard time affording living here.
For example, and I don't mean to interrupt you, you hold that thought, 70% of Charlottesville city employees cannot afford to live in the city of Charlottesville.
Yeah.
That's startling.
Right. And to me, it's unfortunate. And it doesn't necessarily benefit the other, 30%. There's drawbacks to those 30 in terms of, those people have to be driving and they're not as available as. Do you want your safety services people to be living 30 minutes away or yeah.
Eventually, do you see us living in a Charlottesville and Central Virginia and a Richmond that is connected down 64? Because, Short Pump is growing closer to Charlottesville. Zion's Crossroads is growing closer to Short Pump. You have, Boyd's Tavern. That exit's becoming popular. What are your thoughts? And Patrick Kearns says you're looking good, Jim McVay. Patrick Kearns is giving you some props right now.
Tell him I'm wearing the black socks.
He's wearing the black socks, Patrick Kearns. He gave you a thumbs up right there. Talk to me about what you're seeing, where it's going, Jim.
Okay. Well, one time I heard from a client. This was on a more limited basis, but I'll get to answer your question in a second. They were looking at a home, and the husband asked, well, do you think that land behind us is going to be developed? And before I could answer, the wife says, honey, someday everything's going to be developed. Well, does that answer your question?
Well, it's based on the premise that God's not making any more land.
Right.
And we're not to get into the religion piece, but we have a finite amount of land.
And do we allow the development to take place. It's to some degree a political decision, but I think people need to speak up about if that's what they really want.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there's a lot of people who don't necessarily want to see that happen. I'm not a believer that all growth is positive. So we have to be, I think, very careful.
Sure. Talk to us about, I love and we've touched on it already, I love the historical stories around the mall. Mm-hmm. The mall initially, when it went to being a pedestrian corridor, did not have a lot of success right away.
Right.
What do you remember?
It was developed right about the time that I got here. Didn't really experience it so much. It looked like, well, the wrong stores had been here. It's like, oh, we're a retail store. But the way America was going, oh, this kind of store needs to go out to a mall. And so it had to go through that transition of the boutique shop kind of thing, and the restaurants, and it had to go through that. I remember when the Paramount Theater was for sale, and it sat around for a while, and it's like, what's going to happen with this? I actually showed it to a potential client. He'd actually worked there as an usher when he was a kid. He said, well, wouldn't it be cool to own this? But he didn't see the economics of owning that theater.
Well, sure, because it costs a lot of money.
Right, yeah.
What else do you remember from the mall and its evolution? I mean, how is and you've touched on this already, how has the music scene changed downtown?
Oh, well, to be able to go into Miller's and different places and seeing, well, this wasn't on the downtown mall, it was on West Main Street, but seeing Robert Palmer at the Mine Shaft and people like that. But just people who were not necessarily known, but they're good musicians and they're playing. I can't remember what the venue was, but seeing Dave Matthews.
Trax? Was it at Trax?
Oh, well, I saw him there, yes.
Okay.
When they first started, I forget whether it was like every Tuesday evening, every Thursday evening. I remember going here because I was a fan of one of the band members, and going, and there'd be like 50 of us.
That's crazy.
In this big place.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, the Dave Matthews Band, and there's 50 of us, and there could have been 500.
That's
but
amazing.
Nobody had ever heard of them. It didn't take long, though. This was like in the fall, and within 4 or 5 months, the place was jammed.
When was that? Do you remember? Roughly.
Oh, well, they were just getting started. So how long have they been around? 25 years?
Wow.
I'm not sure.
50 people at Trax watching the Dave Matthews
Yeah,
Band.
like,
amazing.
like who are these guys?
Right.
Yeah.
Could you tell right away as a music fan that these guys were going to make it big?
No, I don't have that knowledge.
Yeah.
But because of the fact that I was a fan of one of them, it was like, I know he's good.
Who was that? Was it Boyd?
Boyd,
Yeah.
yeah.
He's
Boyd
a rock
playing,
star.
yeah. I really like following Boyd. Well, when I knew he was playing.
Yeah.
So I even said, they ought to be calling this the Boyd Tinsley Band.
Really? I mean, his energy was ridiculous.
Because I didn't know Dave.
Right.
I didn't know anything about it. So that was my naive thought. I know Boyd, and he's joining these other guys. Okay. Yeah, but I saw Dave Matthews playing guitar. I think it was at Live Arts.
Okay.
There was some event, I forget what it was. But he's getting up there playing his acoustic guitar by himself, singing. So, okay.
I love those stories because I think those stories are like woven into the fabric that is Charlottesville and help are an indication of how Charlottesville's evolved and what it has to offer. I think another really important, an entity that has a really important role to play in the community is the University of Virginia. And you have an MBA from UVA. You've been in Charlottesville for 45 years. Put into perspective, we'll start open-ended, UVA's role in the community and how you've seen UVA perhaps, maybe up its game with support of Charlottesville?
I think back in the day, the statistic was something on the order of 30% of all households in the area had somebody employed at UVA doing something.
How long ago was that? Roughly.
30, 35 years ago,
Okay.
something.
Okay.
And I'm rounding things off. I don't know what the number is today, but obviously it was a big influence. I think that's less in terms of the percentage of people who might be employed by UVA, but we're all influenced by them, by what they're doing and creating and so forth. I've got mixed feelings about one of these subjects. I'm a big sports fan.
Me too.
And I've been season ticket holder and
For football?
Football, basketball for 25 years. Tennis. The best collegiate tennis in America. You can go to Boar's Head and watch it for free.
Doug Horowitz is saying, don't forget Jim Z4 in the tennis scene.
Thank you, Doug. Yes.
Talk to us about
rivals.
Perfect time with tennis here.
Yes. I played on the same softball team for 33 years in City League softball, and Doug was a rival, yes. But we became friends because we played in called Z4. You know how they designate levels of teams, like if you're in A league, you're like the best in the state, and B and C. We broke away and called ourselves the C League, Z League.
What's the Z League? You're saying it's on the...
Well, just a Z4. It wasn't
Okay.
even Z1. We called it Z4.
Okay.
Just joking around. That we were actually pretty good and we were competitive.
Yeah.
But we didn't take ourselves seriously. Not that this would ever happen today, but maybe we would have an adult beverage after the game.
Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with that. I love adult beverages.
But you're not supposed to have them at the public
I
park.
think
So
that
we
still
never-
happens,
we
Jim.
we never did that, people. But we did go. Oh, gee, what's the name of the African restaurant now that's on the backs? I forget. But there was a restaurant called Random Row.
Okay.
And that was the place, like so many of us, after playing, we would go to Random Row. That's where we would have our beer.
Random Row, right across from the Lewis and Clark
Shabine.
statue, right?
Oh, Shabine.
Okay.
It's where Shabine is now. Used
The
to be
South
right-
African restaurant.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was that like? I love these stories.
Oh, it was a lot of fun because you'd go there and, hang out. And because the league played like Wednesday nights for 30 some years, it would be Wednesday nights in the summer, we would have our games. And then, okay, what are you going to do afterwards? So many of us would go to Random Row.
What was Jim McVay like as a softball player? Were you a quick-handed shortstop that could turn the double play really easily?
For a while, I was a shortstop, or I was mostly left fielder and left center fielder.
So in softball...
and hit leadoff.
Okay, so that means you must have been a tremendous athlete, because the most important positions in softball are on the left side of the diamond, because so many people are right-handers, and when the ball is not coming super fast, you get a lot of pull hitters. So you're putting your best athletes and your best players on the left side of the diamond. Left field is a critically important position in softball.
Well, I played that for a while. I was fortunate enough to have a good buddy of mine playing next to me for like 15 years. He was left fielder and I was left center fielder, which is
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is awesome.
So, and I was the leadoff hitter. Caitlin Mancini is also a softball player. I don't know if that came up in her talk.
It did not.
Yeah, she was. What I hear, I've never seen a good second baseman.
What about, how did you start becoming, I want to talk entrepreneurship from a business standpoint. When did the career really start booming? You were the top, I'm going to embarrass you a little bit, okay? The top producer at Roy Wheeler, right here. The man is very modest and humble. He does not like the spotlight on him. I think it would be safe to say that you perhaps may not have wanted to do the show.
That's a safe bet.
You were
yes.
encouraged and persuaded by the very persuasive Michael Guthrie
Yes.
to do the program. I'm glad you did because I've enjoyed this discussion. When did it start becoming, now that I've set the stage, okay, when did you start like taking that leap into like, man, I am producing some serious numbers here in real estate?
It's kind of like in waves. Before coming to Roy Wheeler, which I've been with him like, I don't know, 29 years, something like that. Before that, there was another company, much smaller, but I was one of the top producers there. That company doesn't exist anymore. The two brothers who owned it decided to retire, and it's, I guess the rest of us have to find a place to go.
There was no exit strategy?
No.
No.
So, so I decided to come to Roy Wheeler. And there was always the thought that, yes, I could do well here, but then, okay, yes, I am playing softball and tennis and doing other things. I'm even more passionate about or enthusiastic about tennis than I am softball.
Yeah, why
by
tennis?
the way. It's a physical challenge, mental challenge, great socially. Whether it's something physical like that, whether it's intellectually challenged, it's with speakers, I like to push myself. Even if it's at work, I need to learn this new technique or this new technology or whatever. I like the challenge. So, okay, can I get better? I know there's always going to be people a lot better than me, but hopefully I can improve.
You know, and I think that's not only an important element of being a successful entrepreneur, but just I feel like being a good person in general. It's like, how can we improve and become better every day? And, you know, I feel like ways we can do that is, you know, being more open-minded, being more tolerant. Where I'm going with this, I feel like it's a natural segue to say August 12th. I like to bring it up because I think it's a topic that I think in some ways unfortunately defines Charlottesville. I was watching, there was a clue on Jeopardy did you see this?
Somebody posted it.
Yeah.
About the photographer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so my first job at the University of Virginia was as a staff writer at the Charlottesville Daily Progress. Okay, it was a fabulous time. I was terribly underpaid. Okay, to the point where like, you know, but at the same time, you don't have the perspective so much of like, I want to do this, this, and that. So being terribly underpaid is not nearly as big a deal. Okay, when you're young. Okay, then as you want to like start a family, want a house, then that becomes more of a priority, as you know. So where I'm going with this is the photographer, and this was the clue on Jeopardy. The photographer, Alex Trebek asked this question. This particular photographer won this national award for a travesty in this community. And the answer was Charlottesville, Virginia on August 12th. So where I'm going with this, and let's start August 12th, or let's start open-ended first. Your thoughts on everything that transpired?
First of all, I'll touch on something that I was 10 miles away from Kent State.
Okay.
I was a senior in high school
Interesting.
when that happened.
Okay.
So that was always with me a little bit. And to hear how many different stories and perspectives there were on that event. And it's like, oh, there's more than one way to think about this. That's applicable here too. Obviously, very unfortunate. Many different sides to it. What I'm seeing is that some people outside, if they're thinking about moving here, given, you know, how do I converse or get in a position of conversing with somebody from the outside? It's because they've probably contacted me about perhaps moving here.
Right.
So maybe that's not a factor. Some people have said, hey, what is Charlottesville really like? Both in terms of what created that as well as what's the reaction to it.
Sure.
Gee, I don't know if it's the right place to move to. You know, tell me more. That kind of thing.
What my mindset has changed initially, and I feel like that's what we have to do as humans is evolve with our thinking, and we're able to do that. That's what separates us from every other mammal on the planet, okay, is the evolution of our thinking. I see, initially I was like, removing the statues, is it going to change history? Okay, and then my mindset changed. Well, if these statues in these public parks are causing folks to feel this way, then something must be done. Because while I don't per se feel that way, if my neighbors or my friends or my colleagues, my coworkers do feel this way, then myself as a tolerant and open-minded human needs to consider their viewpoint and perspective and realize that it's not just about how I see it, it's about how others see it as well, which is touching on what you were saying earlier in the show. Thoughts on that?
Yes, I'm a firm believer that we have to be able to look at things from other people's perspectives. And I may not see something as offensive, but I need to listen. We all need to listen a whole lot better than we do. And then think about things before we react and before we form opinions.
I feel like that's what you do as a successful agent.
Oh, listening is such an important part of it. Whether it's the specifics about what they want to accomplish or just learn more about them. That's so important. And to gain their trust, that I'm not trying to inject my thoughts. Yes, there's information I can impart that I will, but I want to get to know the people. Occasionally I get distracted and we kind of have fun. A professional football team that Pittsburgh Steelers I'm a fan of.
Yeah.
One time, meet people because they were husband and wife, both new professors at UVA. Hey, Jim, would you work with these people? And, so he and I are sitting in the front seat. She's in the back. We're starting to look at homes, and we're getting to know each other. Oh, you're from Pittsburgh. Oh. And the wife goes, oh, no, I'm going to have to listen to you guys talk about the Steelers.
And what did you do?
Well, maybe a little bit.
Right,
yeah.
You're like, I love the Steelers, but maybe not go all the way down that road.
We're not too far. Yeah. But other subject matters.
You're able to speak on so much.
I'm just fascinated about get in the car with a professor because the chairman of the astronomy department used to be a client before he retired, and then he would refer people he would hire. And it's like, oh, you're studying this? And I'd have to bring myself back to talk about real estate.
You have the gift of human connection. It's a gift.
Well, thank you. Maybe it's a gift, maybe it's just a perspective.
What do you mean?
Just how every human is, no matter who that human is.
Well, I feel like it could be learned, no?
Oh, yes, I agree. You learn that whoever you're with has value, you have something to contribute to them. They could contribute to you. We can both contribute to the well-being. Absolutely, even if, and I won't mention names, but even if we pick somebody, one of the worst people out there, whatever that might mean, I can dislike what that person does, and I can try to get them to stop doing what they do, but it doesn't mean I have to stop. Loving might be too strong of a word, but stop appreciating them as a human being.
Well said. That was good. That's got me thinking right there. Harris, we'll work you in with a question shortly. Harris Tolber's our director. We like to work him into the show, broaden his perspective as well here on the I Love CVille Show. Before we get to you, Harris, I'll give you a chance to think about it. We're going to throw it to Jim. You've touched on it all already. Charlottesville and what it means to you. Most people don't spend 45 years in a community. And in fact, I think the rule of thumb is, and the metric that's out there, is the average person moves every 7 years. Now, the person or changes homes every 7 years. Oftentimes, that's within the same community or the same municipality, because as they get older, they have roots and a foundation in place, kids in school, friends, family, etc. Average person moves every 7 years. The question I have with you is, put in perspective the value and what Charlottesville means to you personally.
Well, I get that value from talking to so many different people, and it's like, what would some other communities offer? Why would I go there?
And recreate it. Yeah.
And, what does it have that Charlottesville doesn't have? My drive-in from Earlysville every day, it's gorgeous. The cultural opportunities, the fact that I can interact with so many interesting people, be challenged intellectually and physically. There's the getaway places. There's a lot of people that don't realize we have 7 public lakes in Albemarle County. That's awesome. You just want to get away and hang out.
Which one's your favorite?
Probably Mint Springs, just because of being able to go up.
Proximity to you?
Not so much. It's not far. You're right. But yeah, to be able to go hiking up behind it.
Have you been Walnut Creek?
Yes.
Walnut Creek is my favorite. I'm an avid mountain biker.
Oh, yes.
And the trails there are ridiculous. Walnut Creek has a beach. Walnut Creek has a huge lake. Yes. It has the best hiking trails, the best picnic trails. I mean,
perspective. I don't know if this has changed or not. Down by Walnut Creek, 10 years ago, it wasn't that long ago, there was a farm on the market. Conscious decision on the owner's part, did not have electricity.
What?
Just lived without it.
Get out of town.
Beautiful piece of property, really nice home. You drive up and go, this is nice. A conscious decision on the owner's part.
How does that impact resale value?
Well, there's a lot of scratching of heads like, this can't be real. Yes, it is.
And do they still own it?
I don't know what the history. I don't know what happened.
That is mind-boggling to me. We'll get Harris Tolber in the mix here. He's our director, Harris Tolber. Give us some perspective here, sir.
So, Mr. McVeigh, my question for you involves something you were talking about at the beginning of the interview, which was that you've been practicing a little bit of meditation, which is also something that I have recently been trying to practice, and it doesn't surprise me at all that you have been, or that you're familiar with the concept. I can just tell that you're a person who has a very soothing, calm demeanor. You're very thankful and aware of the small things in your life, of your daily interactions with other individuals. And my question is, when did you start sort of doing some research on that, and how has that been going for you?
It's a good question.
I was very fortunate that there were 3 events, and this goes back about 11 or 12 years ago, 3 events that happened within about 2 months of each other. One was talking to friends who belong to, Sangha is a Buddhist name for a community.
Okay.
So they were talking about this community that they were part of, and that sounded very interesting. Okay. And then in my alumni magazine from my undergraduate days, the back page is always an alum who's doing something interesting. Well, it turns out he's one of the, Jack Kornfield is one of the foremost Western Buddhist teachers. You go, oh, that's interesting. And then within about 2 weeks, some different people asked me to help this Buddhist Lama find a place for him to establish a retreat center here. And so I'm driving around with Lama Chopal sitting in the front seat in his saffron robes, one of the most peaceful people. Had a pretty good sense of humor, too. But to go out and just spend hours with him was really interesting, and I'm putting these things together. Friends are in this, and this guy who graduated from Dartmouth about 5 years before I did is into this, and being with this very peaceful person. It's like, oh, maybe this would be an avenue for me to explore, to learn more about. I started reading books. more before like sitting down and meditating. I'm going to read more about it, find out. And that's really what got me going.
It seems to be Buddhism in general has tremendous influence on you.
In a way, yes.
Okay.
Now, I don't consider Buddhism a religion.
Okay. Is it a mindset?
It's a psychology. It's not a mindset. A great quote by Thich Nhat Hanh, who was, he's still with us. He was talking about that there is a Catholic priest who lives in a Buddhist monastery in France, and the priest was saying, this does not interfere with my belief in Christ. Buddhism doesn't have to. It's a way of interacting with other people on a non-religious basis. The Buddha didn't talk about this being a religion. It's, hey, like if you went to a professor of psychology, they're not going to talk about what they talk about as a religion. It's a way of thinking about other people. And it can be applied in so many other religions.
I love it.
Whether it's loving kindness. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Why don't we create what we call some sizzle reels, some highlights from the interview that we can send your way afterwards. And one of the sizzle reels I like to create here, Harris, is what you love. We've touched on it, but give us the recap. What you love, Jim McVay, of being a real estate agent and a realtor and an associate broker in Central Virginia.
Two biggest things are interacting with so many different people, interesting people in dynamic situations, and the flexibility for my own schedule and what I choose to work on and so forth.
It's fantastic. I've enjoyed this interview. You and I have filled 70 minutes. It's 1:40.
Wow.
Yeah. You've enlightened me. We have similarities. I love connecting with folks from all walks of life. You clearly do as well. And you're clearly very passionate about our community. And you know, it seems to me, and in fact I know, that you just want the best for it. Same for me. And you're also very tolerant of different perspectives. Same for me. Here's a tough question as we wind down. What's in store for the rest of your life? What do you want?
Well, the easiest way to answer that is to be more involved in fulfilling things. At whatever point I am that, okay, whether it's complete retirement, slowing down, whatever it is, there's going to be so many opportunities to work with other people and help other people.
Mentorship?
Could be mentorship, absolutely.
Seems like you're kind of already doing that.
Yeah, in a way. But also, it could be as simple as, like with the Rivanna Conservation Alliance, just going out and helping organize a river cleanup day. You know, okay, do that. I don't see myself so much as being on boards anymore. I've been on plenty of not-for-profit boards. Accomplished a lot, but you know, I'd rather be more hands-on and working with more people.
I love it.
I am going to continue giving blood. I've got, I've given 286 units of blood in my life. So, got to get up to at least 300. Nice round number like that.
Why do you give so much blood?
Well, it's easy to do. And I've been doing it for so long. Do we have time for a little story about how I got started?
You go anywhere you want. No rules here.
First time I ever donated, I just joined a fraternity in college, and the college made a big deal out of this. There's 4 blood drives a year, and the whole community got involved because it was a very small town of like 5,000 people, and the college put up as a draw the social organizations that got the highest percentage of memberships donating blood got a free keg. So my fraternity brothers recruited us.
You do a keg of beer surprise. It's going to motivate some fraternity brothers.
Yes. So that's the first time I ever donated and we won the keg. And it's so easy to do. To just, you donate, you sign up for the next time, and you keep doing. That's what I've been doing for how many years is that? Quite a while.
Let's turn that into a sizzle reel, Harris. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask you, Harris, what you learned today from Jim McVay in our interview. So turn it over to our director, who I think is a key member of, obviously, our team. What have you learned today?
Well, Mr. McVay is, obviously somebody who connects with people in a very, very well. I mean, I feel like the set today just has like a very chilled out kind of vibe, and I think it just kind of radiates off of you. Your tone of voice and your presence is very, very calm, and I think that is an important trait, interacting with people, and I can definitely see why you have success, as a realtor. Like, I think that it's very easy for people to be around you, connect with you, and trust you, and I think that, that holds really true. We appreciate having you on the show. It's been a great show.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Talk to us about last question. I agree with what he said. You're a chill, likable guy. Friends, this community, we're going to turn a highlight reel here. Getting me choked up a little bit. What it means to you. The community in totality.
An opportunity to express myself in many different ways, interesting, challenging ways, including the opportunity to help people. And there's always that balance. Going to the Casa breakfast yesterday, yes, we can talk about good work, but the fact that the work needs to be done. How many kids need help in our community? Wouldn't it be nice to that need to no longer exist? So as long as that need exists, hey, people, let's get together and help, whether it's through MACA, Boys and Girls Club. There's lots of good avenues for us to contribute. So I really like the fact that there's so many avenues, so different aspects of helping people. And it's not just a handout. It's particularly with MACA, their philosophy is we're going to help people improve their lives by education and so forth. It's not just a handout.
Great show. You crushed it.
Oh,
you
thank
crushed
you.
it. I'm truly grateful. 75 minutes. You did a great job. He's Jim McVay, guys. He's an associate broker at Roy Wheeler. I think even more importantly, he is a key contributor to Central Virginia and Charlottesville, and similar to our mindset of leaving the community in a better place than when he first arrived. That's important to us. That's obviously important to him. I'm grateful for his most precious commodity, his time. We close the show the same way every day. And how we close the show is two things. Is if you give more than you take, you will leave the world in a better place, and you probably will end up winning in the end. So give more than you take. And then the second way we close the show, guys, is by, I guess, discussing what some of the qualities we try to embody here as a business, and it's the golden rule, and it's not about religion here. It's more about a mindset. And the golden rule is if you treat others like you want to be treated yourself, then our home will be better. So why don't we embody the golden rule? I don't understand why we don't more of us don't embody the golden rule. So please try to come, every day, whether any walk of life you're in, and embody the quality of the golden rule of treating others how you want to be treated yourself. Because if you do, we can help return Charlottesville to its beauty, its essence, and to a community that we undoubtedly know it can become. My name is Jerry Miller. He is Jim McVay. Harris Tolbert, Judah Wickower, and Lauren Linsky make this program possible. It is the I Love CVille Show on the I Love CVille Network. Thank you kindly for joining us on a Tuesday afternoon across Central Virginia. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, everyone.
thank you for your message. I appreciate it.
You did a great job. Yeah, we did
Thank you.
75 minutes. We normally go 15
Oh,
over, but it was just a pleasant conversation. Did you feel the same?
Oh, yes. Thank you for making it so much easier. Yes.
I'm just the pace setter. What we're going to do is every time there was a